Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Now, if I can get my computer to not be stuck, then I can, you can see our faces. There we go.
There we go. Magic. We did it.
Magic. It had a moment.
Your
Well,
computer is feeling or behaving like how I feel. So I'm totally
oh
sympathetic
my
with your
gosh, that
computer right
never happens. That is so funny. But we are back. We are back. We took a summer break, the Collaboration Culture podcast, and now we are back and we are doing this fourth quarter series. I hope you had an opportunity to see that on the flyer, our fourth quarter success series, to be exact. And this evening, I have the Shannon B. Henderson.
now.
And yes, the Shannon B. Henderson. I believe we have a few things in common that we've never really had an opportunity to speak about. But before I move forward with her, I want to welcome each of you. For those who are watching, this is our 5 o'clock happy hour. So for those who are here, thank you for joining or who will join. For those who catch the replay, please put hashtag replay and share, share, share. Okay. So for those of you who you are here, welcome. The Collaboration Culture podcast is a part of Coffee and Collaborations Media, which has been going strong since what 2018. Yeah, 2018 is when we started the show, the Coffee and Collaborations radio show, and that evolved into a podcast, which has evolved now to a media company, which houses several podcasts, including this one. And so that I brought all of that up because we're talking about content this evening with our guest. I brought all of that up. Many of you already know the story, but I brought all of that up because we are talking about creating content. We are talking about how important content is. We're talking about identity and authenticity and how important that is. And so for fourth quarter success, we have to implement some fourth quarter success goals and activity in order to achieve that. No matter if you're an entrepreneur, no matter if you work a 9 to 5, no matter if you're a CEO of your own home, whatever it is, whatever it is that you want to achieve success in, it could be finances, which I'll talk about a little bit later. We're going to go into that. So, once again, welcome. Let me introduce my guest. I'm just going to read a little bit of what I know about her. And then I'm going to have her to come on and share exactly what it is that she wants us to know that we don't mention. So, one of the things that we have in common is Elizabeth City, North Carolina. I went to Elizabeth City State University, and Shannon is from that area. She runs her business and contributes to the legacy of her family, which includes her husbands and 4 sons from Elizabeth City, North Carolina. So all you Vikings out there, you gotta look, we gotta love on her because she's from the origins. So she's the chief content officer of Content Commanders, which is a full-scale content strategy and storytelling company that helps people add more power, personality, and perspective. I love alliteration to their digital, print, and social content. She's a writing enthusiast with 15 plus years of content strategy and development experience. And I want Shannon to tell you even more about what she does. And I want you guys to pay attention because I'm going to tell you, in my experience, as an entrepreneur, networking, helping people build their businesses, one of the main things that people talk about is this thing called social media and how to do that well. And they talk about, well, I don't know if I have enough content. I don't know how to create content. And now is an opportunity this evening for you to gain just a little bit of information from this 30 minutes or so that we're with Shannon. So if you're looking to grow your business, in this fourth quarter around that particular space, you want to listen in. So, Shannon, I'm giving you the floor.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you for having me. I am very excited and I have my coffee. Okay, so
Yes.
now we can get to the collaboration. But thank you for having me. As you mentioned, I am the Chief Content Officer of Content Commanders. And What we do is we tell really great stories, and we use written messaging, we use digital media, we use design, we use audio to help a brand identify and tell their stories to very specific audiences for very specific reasons. Okay. So that's what we do. But you can find that stuff out by visiting our website or going on LinkedIn and becoming one of my LinkedIn followers or friends. That's not what I want to tell you about. I think that in telling stories and building relationships and helping people to unlock something, it's about getting to know each other. So I always lead a lot of conversations with the fact that I am an ENTJ Virgo. Okay. And I feel like that's going to tell a bigger story than any bio could tell you. Um, and with an ENTJ, that's just speaking to my personality types in terms of how I create and analyze stuff and how
Hmm.
I make moves. And that Virgo, well, if you don't have a Virgo in your life, I don't know what to tell you. You just missing out on so much magic. But that's what it is. And I'm originally from Washington, D.C. So
Okay.
this is like my second homestead here in Elizabeth City, but I'm born and raised in the real Chocolate City, Washington, D.C. And I've been here in Elizabeth City for about 10 years now. So it is second homestead, and I am definitely enjoying it. And Vikings, please show me some love. Come back. Come back and show me some love over here if you are far away from Viking land.
Uh, well, I have family in DC, so that was actually so something else we have in common. I
See?
spent a couple years in DC before we moved to Raleigh. So yeah, got lots of
Nice.
family there.
You're family now. I don't even
Yeah.
care. As long as you know about mumbo sauce and you've heard some go-go before, you
Oh
family.
yeah. Oh yeah.
You're good. We're in good company now.
What are some so I want to dive into some thoughts that I have around content because
Okay.
that is absolutely is your specialty. You were talking about storytelling. So
Yep.
how do we begin to create that, especially those who are concerned about their story? How do we begin to be open and create that story and use that in order to get content in our businesses?
Well, storytelling is interesting. I always like to go back to my grandmother when I was a little kid.
Hmm.
And my grandmother would always say, don't tell stories, don't tell stories because telling
Yeah.
stories meant lying. And now I like to tell my grandma I'm a professional storyteller. And part of her clutches her pearls, like, Lord, my grandbaby is a liar. And the other part is like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So with stories, what I like to tell people is that you have to identify your story, right?
Hmm.
So our brands, our lives, whether it's personal brand, professional brand, our lifestyle is full of stories.
Yeah.
Some of those stories we don't want to tell people.
Hmm.
Some of those stories we're like, I might embellish it a little because it's not all that great or interesting. And some of them are really, really good stories that need to be told. Your job in using storytelling as content is to figure out which stories really need to be told.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of times what people do is that they become shy and apprehensive of telling a story because it sounds boring, it sounds uninteresting, whatever the case is. And that's usually the story that connects us as humans and triggers a psychological effect of support.
Hmm.
So even as a professional brand, understanding the humanistic approach to storytelling is what's going to convince your customer to select you over your competitor. And it's really that simple. If we look at two brands that do the exact same thing, if we learn the story, the origin story of that brand, why they started, where the roots are from, we're most likely inclined to buy and support from that brand versus this very ambiguous, vague brand that just has tons of marketing. So just remembering that storytelling is an age old thing, like biblical times, right? Storytelling is what connects us to something and convinces us to support something.
Yeah. And I think that's so true. So how does somebody begin to start the process though? Like, is that, and then is that something that's a part of your service and what your business provides? How do you begin to be able to say, okay, this is relevant to my business? This part of my story is relevant to my business to be able to execute that well?
Sure. So I'll give you some cheat codes. It is something that we do, but what I like
Hmm.
to do with content commanders is empower people to figure it out for themselves. I never want to create a reliant customer. I want them to grow, to be independent and figure it out for themselves. But here's a quick cheat code is think of your top 10 stories that are relevant to your brand, whether it's your
Hmm.
personal brand or your product or service based brand. Think of the top 10 stories, right? So you can have your origin story, you can have your why I quit my job to do this business story, the worst customer I've ever had, the best customer I've ever had, the most or least money I've ever made. Think of your top 10 stories, right? Put them in a list, real quick
Hmm.
bullet points. Then I want you to think of your call to actions. What are you going to tell people after you tell this story? What do you want them to do? Do you want them to buy a product, join a mailing list, visit your website, listen to your podcast, subscribe to your YouTube? What are your CTAs?
Hmm.
And then what you're going to do is start crossing off stories first.
Hmm.
This story doesn't really do it for me. I don't want to tell that. This story is a little bit more interesting. I'll keep that. Start crossing off stories. When you whittle down that list, maybe halfway through, you're up to 5 stories, connect them to your call to actions. If I tell this story, is that enough to say subscribe to my YouTube channel to learn more? Is that enough to say, listen to my podcast to hear the end of this story? Whatever it is, once you start connecting them, like we did in school, where you had to draw the lines to connecting ideas, it's the same thing. And then what naturally emerges are either 5 stories you can tell over a span of time, or one really good story that you don't mind repeating over and over again. And then that's your power list. That's
Yeah.
what you do when you're trying to build content.
Yeah. And I like, I don't think I've ever thought of that, like eliminating, but
Mhm.
that's such a genius way to just come up with the story. And I don't think I've thought of it, but I've done it. And
Mhm.
I'll tell you like how I came up with my story or my signature talk. It was from a story,
Mhm.
a very simple story. Like people just didn't know how to say or spell my last name sometimes. And yeah, and so I would say born to win, like it's win born, like born spelled your normal regular way, born to win. And
Yep.
that became like a signature message that I use whether I'm talking about finance or communications or what I'm talking about is just something simple. And so, and when I go and speak, I tell that story as a part of breaking the ice as my intro.
And that's it. And that's
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? I think when it comes to content or when it comes to storytelling, we either oversimplify or overcomplicate, right? That's
Yeah.
just what we do. And
Yeah.
we tell a very boring story or we embellish out of control. And
Hmm.
so it's really just about being honest and recognizing what's in front of you and saying,
Yeah.
I started this business because I hated my job. Do you know how
Hmm.
many people start businesses because they hate their job? Instantly, you have a connection. So, just
Yeah.
recognizing what's in front of you and telling that story has already just started to set tidal waves for other people.
Yeah, simple but powerful. Now, one of the things I want to ask you because social media is where, of course, we're landing with our content, but there are so many places now, and it's hard to keep up. I know for many people
Yep.
as to where to be. I've taken classes personally where it's like, okay, this is where you should be if blah blah blah, but in the end, sometimes it's still very confusing.
Yep.
So how does a person figure out? Now, I know it can be demographics and things like that, but how do you really truly figure out where you should be and create that sort of success formula around because that's what I think gets overwhelming. These reels are now the new thing that everybody's
Yep.
doing, but if you don't know how to work your phone or whatever, how do we
Yeah. Flip
overcome?
phone, you stuck.
Right. So how do we overcome all of these different mediums of media, and then how do we come up with that perfect success formula as to where to sit?
So we take Content Commanders takes an avant-garde approach to social media.
Okay.
And it is not go where your audience is. I know this is going to be like, what? Are you sure she's into content? Because that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. It's actually go where you are comfortable creating content.
Okay.
And here's why. If you are uncomfortable doing videos and taking photos and you're on Instagram, something bad is going to happen. And here's what's
Uh-oh.
going to happen. You're going to have poor quality of video and photo because you're uncomfortable. You're going to be inconsistent. You're going to show up one day and disappear for 6 months and then try to come back and figure it all out.
Facts.
You're going to try to mimic everybody else on that platform and do what they're doing because you have no idea what you're
What
doing.
you're mm-hmm.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
don't go where your audience is. Go where you are just like, I like this space. My kids tease me all the time because I love Facebook, right? And they're like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you're old. Nobody likes it. And I say, to me, it's my most comfortable platform because I can do a lot of different things. I can create groups and I can have long posts and I can do live and I can do video and I can do a lot. I'm
Mm-hmm.
comfortable there. And so when I'm here on Facebook, I'm just creating content. It's
Mm-hmm.
easy. It's fluid. I can do it from the bed. I can do it from the street. It's fluid and I don't mind being consistent. You
Mm-hmm.
drag me over to Instagram, I'm going kicking and screaming. Feels like I can only communicate via photo or via
Mm-hmm.
video. And I'm a writer. And I'm like, yeah, I know I can write a caption, but it don't translate the same. What I would
Right.
tell anybody when it comes to content creation is figure out the medium that is good for you first. If you love photos, video, writing, whatever it is, get comfortable in that thing and own it. Don't let other people tell you photos are dead, written media is dead. Don't do that. Figure that out. Then find the platform that fits you. This feels good. I like showing up here every day. I like contributing to this space. And then tie that media to that platform and then just go there. Because guess what? Your audience will find you and follow you. When we think about audience participation, right? Going where your audience is such an outdated idea because I can probably tell you or anyone else watching this, you are probably following the same person across several platforms,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you mean I'm gonna go where my audience is? If you're good, I'm following you everywhere. So it's
Yeah.
best for you to just show up where you perform best and let them find you there.
Yeah. So to that, as far as following people everywhere they go.
Mhm.
So a question that I have, many of us follow our friends and so forth and so on out of loyalty and you want to support them and all of that. How do we track the success? Because I have seen people go through their pages and eliminate people, tell them to, when people get mad, friends get mad at each other. But
You've
anyway,
been blocked.
like you, I have to remove you so I can make room for
Don't forget the
clients.
disclaimer message that goes up once per quarter that I am cleaning
Right.
my list. Oh, nobody cares, girl. Just clean your list. Just clean your list.
Well, so how do we, okay, so if we're on a platform that we're comfortable with,
Mhm.
how are we tracking the success if we're trying to build clients through that? Like, is there a formula or system when people are creating content and they're saying, hey, I'm on Facebook, and I'm promoting here and you got
Mhm.
ads or whatever, but
Mhm.
there's no success, then is that then where you maybe advise them to move to another platform, or how do you come up with that?
I really honestly believe that if you're not finding success on a platform, it has nothing to do with that platform
Okay.
because that platform has several tools to help you become successful. All of the
Hmm.
platforms have photo, video, writing, music, all of these multimedia components to them, and they actually overlap. They all do the same thing. Let's be honest. It's
Hmm.
just the demographics of the users change. It's an issue with your content. Like you got to sit back and swallow that for a minute. Like, yeah, I might be boring. I might not be offering any type of value. I
Yeah.
might be inconsistent. I
Hmm.
might come across scammy. right? Like one day I'm selling
Mm-hmm.
the herbal teas to help you lose weight, and the next week I am a financial counselor, and then the next
Mm-hmm.
week I am a pastor. Like, we all know we live multifaceted lives,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're selling something, sell that thing, that one
Yeah.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do that on that platform with really great content. You
Mm-hmm.
can be several different roles and people as necessary, but if you're on this platform trying to connect with me and convince me that you are one of the best people to offer this thing, you need to be good at that one thing. And
That's
that's
so
it.
good. That's so good because, like, I think that to your point about being multifaceted, and for those of you who are watching, thank you for joining. If you have any questions around content, please feel free to put them in the comments and I'll share them. So, to your point, like, we do have several different things that are going on in our lives
Mhm,
and things that we care about. And so, for instance, for me, I've always done health and wealth. It's funny that you just said that. I've
mhm,
always focused on how those two things work together. And my hashtag is wellness to wealthness,
mhm,
right? It's hard for me to let one go, but I think most people understand that finance is the hat. However, I do feel like accountability across the board
mhm,
is my focus.
mhm,
And so it was difficult though, and I'm so glad to have you here because it was difficult for me to feel like it was okay to
mhm.
be me, which is to continue to talk about both without feeling, to your point,
Yeah,
spammy or like she
yeah,
doing too much or whatever. And so I stopped talking about one of the things that I really love focusing on, which is health. I stopped talking about it for a long time. And that was the fun of social media
right,
and all of that for me. To be able to connect with people is a big component of my business, and
right,
I dropped it and really just focused on finance because I wanted to be more one thing linear.
right.
And so to that, how is it okay to, I mean, how do you create that where you're not spammy, but
Mhm,
you're still able to be authentic to your identity and who you are when it comes to social media? Because like I said, when I first got on Facebook, which was like 2007,
mhm.
we didn't do a whole bunch of business stuff on
No,
Facebook
no,
back then. It
we
was
did.
social,
We were
right?
looking for people from high school and elementary
And
school.
yeah, and
That
family
was it.
members. Right.
That
And
was it.
so that's how I started my Facebook journey. So I
Mhm,
tend to do different things on different pages. Like I don't
mhm,
talk as much about my family and health and stuff on LinkedIn. That's
mhm,
more straight finance. But on
mhm.
Facebook, I do it all. It's I
Well,
talk about it
let
all.
let me just say this, and that's why I created Content Commanders, is
Hmm.
there needs to be more education around what is content, because now we're in the mindset of content as a part of being influential or being an
Hmm.
influencer, and
So
it's not.
good.
But
Hmm.
do you realize that health and wealth tie together?
Absolutely.
Right? So
Yeah.
it's not the magic formula of picking one, it's
Hmm.
the magic formula of figuring out how to have both of them in the same conversations, right?
Hmm.
The more financially secure you feel, the healthier you feel, right?
Right.
The healthier you feel, the more you're able to pursue finances, right?
Right.
So they're sitting here like best friends doing this, right? And so
Hmm.
it's up to you to create the story of how they both make sense.
Right.
That's it. For instance, right now on Facebook, I'm sharing a lot of my fitness journey,
Hmm.
right? So I'm throwing weights around and I'm doing all of these things. But as the CEO of Content Commanders, someone might say, it sounds like you're trying to be a fitness influencer or you're trying to
Hmm.
do that. No, guess what I'm doing? I'm creating content around my fitness journey. So I'm
Hmm.
showing people what music I listen to while I'm creating this fitness journey. I'm
Hmm.
showing people, I'm telling a story when I write my captions about what I've done at the gym and where I'm going mentally with this. So I'm creating content around this new space in my life.
Hmm.
So it's all about what storytelling is, figuring out. I love to cook, I love to drive, and I love to play golf. Like, I got to pick one. No, figure out, if you're going to use this platform to talk about all three, how they all make sense,
Yeah.
because they do. What do they tie into? Is golf relaxing for you? Is driving relaxing for you? Is cooking relaxing to you? Then guess what your content is about? Finding relaxation,
Mm-hmm.
connecting to the things that bring you relaxation. So create the content that's about that thing. That's how you narrow it down to one out of many. It's just figuring out what's the theme here and tying it together and telling that story.
So good. That's such good advice because I think many people like to share various versions of what's going on in their lives. But to your point about content
Hmm.
versus, I'm going to say, community,
Hmm.
and just being okay. Because I really feel like when people are just selling on their pages, for me, Facebook. Now it might be different on another platform like Instagram
Hmm.
because of the fact that my introduction to this platform was the Facebook platform, where there was more social. For me, I like to see social and business mixed together. Like I like to see the
Yep.
combination.
Yep.
And so I know people that will shoot you in the foot if they feel like you are, why are you sharing so much of your life on Facebook? Not me, but this is what I hear people saying. And I believe, to your point, that the balance is really good, and sharing the story creates content that I don't think people realize also enhances their business and attracts
They
and
don't.
connects others.
They don't. And to your point about selling things, like,
Mhm.
look, as humans, we don't like to be sold anything. We really don't.
Right. Mhm.
We like to spend our money recklessly or as responsibly as we like. We don't need you
Mhm.
to tell us how to do it, right? So I like to think of things like in storytelling, right? This is coffee and collaborations. I could sit here all day like, yes, I'm here on coffee and collaborations, and and this is what I'm drinking, and I can
Yeah.
sell this. I can sit here this whole conversation and hold this, right? Because I'm trying to sell it. Or I can create experiences. I can pop the top. I can look at it. I can put my straw in it. I can sip it. I can go, whoo, this is strong. I can tell you all about this experience without
Yeah.
ever telling you to buy it, to pay attention to it. Link in the bio. I ain't got to tell you any of that. By the
Yeah.
time I hold this label in front of you long enough and have experiences around it, you're going to pause, you're going to replay, you're going to ask, what is that you're drinking? You're going to do something to let me know you're paying attention. And
Right.
all of that is storytelling. That's the
Mhm.
magic of storytelling, of realizing that you don't have to jump in people's face with what you want them to do. You can be
Mhm.
suggestive, you can be creative, you can have fun with it, you can guide them, but you never have to push them to do what you want them to do.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that we can be whole people. Whole
Be a
people.
whole person. Listen,
Yeah.
our stories are interwoven, right?
Mhm.
And the more and more we participate in this digital world, the more we feel disconnected but connected at the same time. We're
Yeah.
connected because it's easy for you and I, who are split amongst geography right now, to
Mhm.
connect. We're disconnected when we don't know anything about each other. When we're
Mhm.
not talking, when I don't know why you're doing this and why you want me here, and I don't know why I'm here when I should be somewhere else. But the moment we begin to have that conversation, and I tell you my story of how I did content commanders, what is an ENTJ? How do Virgos behave? Born to win, when born, I like it. Now I got to figure out how I can come up with something for Baylor. I don't know, but you know, you begin to have these human experiences simply by telling portions of your story. And that's
Yeah.
what's going to keep this relationship growing.
Yeah. One of the things I learned about you through your bio is that you're an author as
Hmm.
well, and
Hmm.
which is absolutely a lot of content.
A
Can you
lot.
tell us a little bit about your books?
Sure. So I've written 4 books.
Mm-hmm.
I started writing books with my first, no, when I was dating my husband. I was going to say my firstborn, but that was my second book. When I was dating my current husband, we were both writers, and we wrote this book that is prose. It's a collection of essays about political, socioeconomic topics.
Mm-hmm.
And I self-published that book, and it lit something.
Mm.
And when I became pregnant with my first son, this step into motherhood unlocked something else. So I wrote the second book. And then the third book, I'm done having babies at this point, and I'm really evolving in my career. I wrote the third book, Black Female and Bossy, which is
Mm.
about owning who you are without compromising your values. And then
Mm.
as I became more enlightened in this 30 something year old body, I wrote my fourth book, which is about bliss and about understanding your own bliss. Now, all of those are self-published titles. I am an advocate for self-publishing.
Okay.
That's just because of creative control and timing and scheduling. Again, going back to this ENTJ Virgo. Um, but now I'm working on my fifth book, which I would like to, have in a major publishing house, but it's also my first fiction book.
Okay.
So writing books is content for sure. And it's a lot easier than what people think unless you just hate writing. But it's something that I enjoy doing and helping other people to do.
I love it. So you help other people as well to write books.
Yep.
Okay. And self-publish them.
As well, I used to help them write and self-publish. So again, with Content Commanders is 3 years old. Geez, I had to
Mm-hmm.
remember. But I've
Mm-hmm.
been doing this for a long time, and I used to have my own ghostwriting company. And under
Oh.
that brand for 15 years, I was a ghostwriter and I helped people to publish their books. So it's a skill that I have that I haven't thrown away, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily what I focus on with Content Commanders.
Got it. So what are we doing wrong? When you when you like just
This
one
just turned
thing,
into
just
a therapy session. Let me put some vodka in this coffee. Go ahead.
no, what are but when you look at content,
Mhm.
when you look at content, what's one thing that is sort of like a pet peeve that you see that people are doing wrong that could easily be tweaked outside of storytelling? What's one other thing or not storytelling? What's one other thing that people can do a little bit better that will really make a difference?
This is going to be interesting. I feel like everybody wants to be an influencer. You
Mm-hmm.
can see it in content. You can kind of see it. As a commander of content, like that's my job. Is to really like dissect content. I
Mm-hmm.
feel most people in creating content, everybody wants to be, most people want to be influencers. And so that's why
Mm-hmm.
I said earlier in content, there's a separation between an influencer and a content. If we look up the word content, right, it's multiple forms of media, right, that
Mm-hmm.
you're using to share information or to educate people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what content is. Influencing is selling.
Mm-hmm.
Influencing is using content to sell an idea to make people take a very specific action. And I think people are not creating content because they want to share information. A lot of people are
Mm-hmm.
not doing that. They are creating content to influence.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes the message gets lost because you're so focused on influencing that you're not sharing any valuable information or education. So
Mm-hmm.
this video, this podcast, this thing is a waste of my time. I received no value from you because you're trying to sell me something. And you
Mm-hmm.
might be very good at it or very bad at it, but I can feel sales. I can feel it. And
Yeah.
I used to be in sales, so that's how I know I can feel it.
Yeah.
Um, but that is probably one thing that people are doing wrong is
Mm-hmm.
not focusing on content and just falling into this influencer gap. And I think that happens because we realize how much money influencers make.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
begin to think content as a means of ends. Like, oh, I can
Mm-hmm.
get wealthy from content. No, baby, you get wealthy from influencing. And so that's your default is to try to influence versus to create valuable content.
That's very good. That's a very good way to look at it. And I think for so I think everybody's trying to find their place, right? And to your point, many people are trying to be
Mhm.
influencers, especially today where they can get paid on these platforms in order to do. Once you hit your 1,000 on YouTube, you
Like,
can get paid,
yes,
or
I'm about to retire. I'm
Instagram,
about to tell my boss,
right?
bye,
Bye,
because
because
I
I'm
didn't hit
making all this
1,000
money.
subscribers.
Instagram reels and all of that. So
Yep.
today, especially in today's time, but
Yep.
also I just want to I want to, and this is not to beat anybody up at all, but I think we're also being told misinformation, because I do believe that we are being told to be influencers, like
Mhm.
to, as opposed to creating good content. So if you could you speak to
Yeah.
that just from that particular perspective, highlighting especially how important it is to really sit down and create the content, because I think this speaks even more to what you do. I think when we hear content creation, that word is bounced around so
Yeah.
often, kind of jumbled with other things,
Mhm.
that we may not realize the depth of what it truly means. So if you could just speak to that,
Sure.
because I think we are being misinformed.
So here's the thing, and I'll break this down on multiple levels here.
Mm-hmm.
Is right now content is being rewarded. The focus
Mm-hmm.
is on monetization, right? So you turn every user on every platform into a content creator and you reward them financially, right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes them create more content. Now, as a user, you have to think, why do y'all need me to create so much content? Why?
Mm-hmm.
You're rewarding me and I like the dollars, but why do you need this much content from me? Well, if you start to pay attention, and again, like we said a couple of minutes ago, that everybody wants to be an influencer, that means at some point you're going to sell somebody something and it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to belong to you. It's not going to be the thing that you created. You're going to get to a space where they're going to knock on your door and say, hey, this coffee right here, you know, I've seen that you've been working so hard and you have 2,000 followers now. Can you tell them about my coffee?
Right.
Right? So you're thinking you're being rewarded for your creativity. You are, but you are being coerced into selling something that does not belong to you. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
this is how that reward increases. And then over time, you're selling something that doesn't belong to you, and you may not even like what you're selling or have ever used it. But the money is so good that you're just going to keep pushing that thing because now this is your career and your livelihood. And you
Yeah.
keep digging deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And remember that job that you quit so that you could be a full time content creator and create the content that you like? You're no longer working for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're working at the mercy of advertisers who are telling you what to sell so that you can pay your bills. Now, it doesn't have to be that conspiracy theory. There are a lot of influencers who genuinely love the products that they advertise and sell. But
Mm-hmm.
my challenge to you all with micro audiences and large audiences is, when is the last time you created content that was only influenced by you and the thing
Mm-hmm.
you created and the thing that you did, and you weren't looking for a million thumbs up and hearts. You were
Right.
looking at this content because you created it, because you loved it and you're good at it.
Yeah.
And so, as we talk about that, we also merge into vanity metrics and
Mm-hmm.
realizing that a lot of content is moving in the direction of vanity metrics. And vanity
Mm-hmm.
metrics are your likes and your follows and your hearts, because none of that means anything without conversion. And
Version.
as
Yes.
content creators, you move back from conversion because you start focusing on vanity metrics. So, all
Mm-hmm.
of that to say, at the core of content creation is quality content and
Mm-hmm.
also creating, which means building something from scratch and loving what you put out. So just
Mm-hmm.
remember that at the core of your social media strategy, your marketing strategy, is that what you build and sell and share with others should be something that you absolutely enjoy for yourself.
So good, because Vanity. I love how you said it. It sounds so educated. But basically, you're saying,
It's
people are
Tuesday. I'm
getting
educated today. It's
it
Tuesday.
sounds so amazing. Like, but basically, you're saying, that people are looking for some sort of endorphin or gratification from likes and loves and all of that, and they're not really creating content. They're looking to gain attention from their posting.
Yeah.
And so that makes that my brain is going off like an alarm, because it's sort of like, in your area of expertise, then how do you combat that person that you're trying to strategically get to the point of creating good content to level up in their business and get these success goals that they want, but they're dealing with this sort of thing over here? Is that somebody that you can, do you feel like you can help them to move forward beyond that?
Absolutely. And one of the stories that I always tell people is if you go right now to Content Commanders Facebook, I think we
Mm-hmm.
have 70 or 80 followers, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So on the outside lens, you're like, "Oh, is she really a commander of content? She can't even get up to 100 subscribers and likers."
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm also a six-figure business year one, and
Mm-hmm.
now high six figures year two.
Mm-hmm.
Has nothing to do with the vanity of what you see as likes and what you see as credibility.
Mm-hmm.
Vanity metrics are just, it's surface level credibility,
Mm-hmm.
right? It makes you and other people believe that you're worth your weight in gold. But if
Mm-hmm.
you really walk it like you talk it and you're good, then once you get under that vanity metric and reach out and say, what do you do and how can you help me? And that person is able to solve a problem. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I don't even need to like your page. I need to hire you to do
Yeah.
what I need. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what we have to learn as business owners. Stop focusing so much on how do I get to 1,000 likes on this and so what? You have 1,000 likes. Does do 100% of your audience like every single post you put up? No. So
No,
then why
yeah.
are you fighting so hard to hit these numbers to look credible? Take some of that
Mm-hmm.
energy and focus on your product and service.
So
Because if
good.
only 1% of that 1,000 people, which is 10 people, reach out
Mm-hmm.
to you, you better be able to serve. You
Yeah.
better be able to close that deal. Because if you can't, it doesn't matter about those 1,000 because those 10 are going to go tell the remaining 990 that you ain't it. And now you got a bigger problem. So don't
Right.
focus on that vanity metric. Focus more on the actual quality that you are delivering to your client.
Absolutely. And speaking of that conversion
Uh-huh.
and your success, so first of all, congratulations on those first and second year
Thank you.
success goals, which is what we're talking about, or success achievement. And so, how does one book you? How does one sit down and get a consultation, or whatever your process is? Because I'm sure somebody watching will want to know.
Sure. So the very first thing I suggest is reaching out to content commanders after you go through the website and you get hooked on the spiel. Just send an email to hello@contentcommanders.com or directly to me, Shannon at contentcommanders.com. And then what's going to happen is I'm just going to give you a link to my calendar or the calendar of one of my commanders. And there's going to be a 30-minute free conversation, not even a consultation. We call it connection calls, and
Hmm.
we're going to learn your story, and we're going to figure out, is are we the right people to help extract and capture what it is you're trying to do? And if
Hmm.
we're not, what we're going to do is just offer free education. We'll tell you, hey, here are some of our videos that we've created about content. We'll say, hey, hop on the mailing list. Hey, we're going to be at this event. We're still going to give you some type of free resource to help you become a better content creator. But if we are aligned, because like I told you earlier in the back room, Kimberly, is that I believe in timing and alignment. That's very important for my brand.
Hmm.
If we are aligned, then we'll take it a step further. And sometimes those things are custom projects where we figure out what's the best story to tell for you and how to tell it. And sometimes there are things that are in our catalog and, we can just quickly get something over to you. Either
Hmm.
way, our focus is really just figuring out what's the story. Are you willing to tell us so we can shape it and tell everyone else? And then how do we grow your brand from your story?
That's so good. So, for those of you who are watching and need some content commanding, some commanding of your content creation, you know that you could do things better. You've been trying to figure things out on your own. And this is the fourth quarter, and you're like, I have not given up. I know that there is success on the other side of this thing called entrepreneurship, on the other side of this thing called motherhood, fatherhood, whatever it is, but definitely in your businesses. I would recommend to reach out to her, you entrepreneurs, small business owners. Reach out to Shannon and get your free consultation. But then also go back and watch this to get some just life. I think some of the things that she said were just life success goals. Like if you practice some of these things day to day, there are also be tools for success in your life. So, but as we all know, the focus of my podcast is generally for entrepreneurs or people career based people who are trying to grow to another level, and that's what we're all about. So, I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. This has been an amazing show. I want to thank Shannon for joining as well. I would love to continue to be able to tap into your genius in
I
order.
love it. Thank you. Thank you for
You're
having me. And I know you're
welcome.
doing your wrap up, but I just wanted to say, when I was listening to you and when I've been observing you for a very long time, we've been friends on Facebook, but I've been paying
Hmm.
attention to your content and I actually made some referrals for your book, but that's a different story.
Oh, thank you.
um, as we talk about fourth quarter success goals, I just wanted to leave your audience with five things. One, two,
Hmm.
three, five things that you should consider for fourth quarter success goals. Is that okay to leave them with these five things?
Absolutely. I was actually going to pass it back to you to do that. So you can absolutely go ahead and do that. I want to share really quickly
Sure.
before you do that because I want you to actually close us out instead of me closing us out. So
Fancy.
Shannon is
Okay.
going to close us out with these five fourth quarter success goals. It is not about me. So as soon as she finishes, we are out of here for the evening for our happy hour to be over officially. But I just want to share that for those of you who are interested in fourth quarter success goals in your finances, reach out to me for the debt detox workshop. Okay. So reach out to me for the debt detox workshop to get more information as to how you can become a part of that. My other flyer, which I have, I think I grabbed the wrong one, but this is the right information. But the other flyer that I have actually has the correct dates on there. And so between November and December, we are going to be tackling some financial goals when it comes to the fourth quarter success that we want to achieve. Okay. So just wanted to share that. Reach out to me, KimberlyWinbornLLC.com. You guys know how to reach me in order to gain more information. So we're closing out with Shannon on our five success goals for the fourth quarter when it comes to content.
Wonderful. Again, Kimberly, thank you for having me. I enjoy being a part of your community for this episode. And of course, reach out to us at Content Commanders with any follow up questions, advice, or just good stories that you want to share with us. But I wanted to leave you all with five things that I think will really get you going, not only in content creation and storytelling, but in entrepreneurship. I know that the fourth quarter can seem a little tricky. It can be stressful or it can be rewarding, depending on what you do and the type of progress that you've made throughout the rest of the year. But I find that these five things will help you to get in shape for the fourth quarter. And I love a good acronym along with alliteration, but this one isn't focusing on alliteration, it's on the acronym SHAPE. So here are the five things that Content Commanders recommend that you focus on for your fourth quarter success goals. Okay. And the first one, the S in SHAPE, is for synergy. when it comes to being an entrepreneur, it's very important that you align yourself with organizations and people and peers and friends and family that are willing to push you, collaborate with you, and help you to transform your ideas into something tangible that benefits your life, your customers, your community. So find your synergy in the fourth quarter. It may not manifest until the first quarter, it may not prove to be beneficial until the second quarter, but find it in the fourth quarter and begin to massage those relationships. The second thing, or the H in shape, is to hone. We talked about, figuring out your platform and figuring out your media and all of these things. Hone the skill that you have, embrace it, sharpen it. Okay. A lot of us are jack of all trades and master of none. A lot of us are trying to just figure out our rhythm. When you find it, or when you think you found it, take some time to sharpen that thing and figure out how you can grow that thing to take care of the lifestyle that you want. The third thing is, or the A in shape, is agility. That's your ability to be flexible, to move, to flow, to bounce, to pivot. That's your ability to do that. And in the fourth quarter, that becomes very important. What you did for the past 3 quarters may not have worked. Guess what happens in the fourth quarter? You don't stick to it. You don't say, well, I guess I better end the year doing the same thing that didn't work for the past 9 months. You don't do that. You figure out what you need to do. You become agile. You start moving and flowing and figuring out what's going to work with you. Again, it may not become evident in the fourth quarter. It might show up in the first, and it might benefit you in the second or beyond. But take the time in the fourth to begin to become agile. The P, or the fourth thing in getting in shape, is your power. Here on my wall, and a part of our tagline for our brand is power, personality, and perspective. Power being number one. Your story, your voice, your ideas, your energy, all of that gives you power. Find your power, embrace it, and don't let anyone or anything take it from you. Running a business is not for the faint of heart, honey. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes things in us that we didn't know we have. But all of those things can give us power. It is up to you to embrace that power and begin to use it to benefit you. And then finally, the fifth thing, or the E in shape, is energetic. Okay. Again, running a business is not for the faint of heart. That doesn't mean that you let it defeat you. Will you have a trying fourth quarter? Possibly. Will it repeat again in the first and second? Possibly. But your energy creates your attitude, and then your attitude determines your altitude. It's not always easy. It's not always simple. It's not always fun. It's not always long term. But in the moment, create the energy that's going to guide you. Sometimes our energy are tied to people, sometimes they're tied to places and things. You have to figure out which people, places, or things no longer serve that energy. Spend the fourth quarter figuring out which people, places, and things no longer serve that energy, and carve out the energy that you need to have to guide your dreams in the right direction. So, again, I just want to leave you with the 5 things to help you reach your fourth quarter success goals, and all of them are naturally in you. And that is synergy, your ability to align with organizations, people, places, things that's going to help you get into your best self and your best brand. Honing a skill that you already have, or discovering a new one and taking the time to hone it. Doesn't take a genius to figure it out. It just takes patience and the desire to be better and to get more. Your agility, your flexibility, ability to pivot, ability to change, your willingness to adapt. That's a natural trait in us. Sometimes we have to exercise that agility muscle. Your power, figuring it out and owning it, keeping it for yourself despite your circumstances. It's not always easy, it's not always fun, it's not always permanent, but your power belongs to you, and you have to figure out how to massage it to get it to where you want it to be. And finally, your energy. Your energy determines your attitude. Your attitude determines your altitude. It's up to you how high or low you go based on the energy you give yourself, your ideas, and your situations. So I hope that that is beneficial and some type of medicine for you in this fourth quarter.
Absolutely. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing those 5 tips. They're scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I also Put them in the comments. Everybody take those and run. I want to thank our sponsor, Industry Image, Elton Benjamin, the greatest graphic designer in the world, for all that you do to help us create content here at Coffee and Collaborations Media. You all have an amazing rest of your evening. Once again, thank you, Shannon, so much, for
You're
all
welcome.
that you do, for who you are. And I think I want to sit down with you very soon in order to get myself together,
Ain't
right?
nothing but a click on a link.
There we go. Y'all have y'all have a great rest of your evening.
Bye.
Bye y'all.